Welcome back. So let's get up and personal with a GIMPA Rector as he talks to our person, Winston Amwa, on the ground to get to know him better and how he's working out in terms of being at the helm of affairs and directing how GIMPA works. Let's see this.
This is what it feels like.
Good morning to you and welcome to a New Day exclusive and a Sunrise exclusive on 3FM 92.7. Now, as part of the GIMPA Rector's New Year message, he shares some wonderful thoughts concerning the country's human resource development and education. This morning, we're in the office of the Rector of GIMPA, Professor Simpson, to find out more about those thoughts and how we could implement them for the country's benefit. Professor Simpson, good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you very much for joining us.
It's a privilege indeed.
How's it been?
Well, so far so good. We thank the good Lord for his mercy.
Well, let me just say a happy new year to you, since we've just started the year, some 24 days into the year. And this is the first time I'm meeting you. But I believe GIMPA has been good so far this year.
So far so good.
What's been so good about it?
We've had another year. We've got systems set. We just, as we are even speaking, are receiving and hosting a panel from the National Accreditation Board. We are yet to have our students back, and we are doing the necessary preparations to have another calendar year and another semester on course.
Okay, so let's look at the thoughts you share when it comes to the country's human resource development and education. And I'll just look at, the first one where you talk about, capacity building, where you say government ministries, departments and agencies, should consistently send their top-level governance, personnel to GIMPA for training. I thought that was being done.
That's been the original mandate, and from time to time we do receive requests from various organizations and commissions to send their people for training. But it is not the order of the day. And I believe that it's important for the national development for all level of staff, particularly the highest level, to receive continuing education and instruction.
Great. Talking about the importance, that means you probably know something. Why is it important? What are we lacking that makes it so important for us to seek continuous education?
Continuous education, the world moves on. New thoughts, new practices develop. And the practitioners have to be equipped and to be informed with these new thoughts and these new practices. Let us also realize a certain reality, which is that a good number of the boards and councils and committees that are put in place with people of different and diverse backgrounds. And for that reason, as you are assuming your duty, it is appropriate that you be inducted into the culture of the specific organization, into the strategic objectives both of the organization and of the body that is commissioning you, to harmonize your operations at the governance level with that at the management level. And these don't come second nature. They require training and equipping.
Can't that be done by the institutions, the departments, agencies? Must they necessarily be brought to GIMPA for that training?
I'm not necessarily making a case that it should be at the GIMPA as an institution, but I'm making a case that that practice and that culture should be entrenched. But coming back to GIMPA, GIMPA was established primarily for that purpose. And so it's got the capacity, it's got the ability, and it's a good thing that from time to time you can't have GIMPA organizing all of your trainings, but it's a good thing to have GIMPA from time to time organize some such short courses, retreats, training seminars, workshops and the like for the various organizations.
In effect, you believe that capacity building of government officials and the top managements in this country is key for our development?
Definitely. The progress of a country on an organization is a direct function of the ability of its personnel.
Great. So let's look at some other points that you make. And I look at point 2, you say government should routinely consult the universities and engage them for solutions to development challenges. Government must take advantage of the full potential of tertiary institutions in the country. So has government been consulting? I'm just curious.
Let me say there's a considerable room for such further consultations and much improvement in the relationships. There's been some kind of a silos operations, universities doing their own things and governments doing their own things. Government may, from time to time, recruit university staff to join its ranks, and university staff may also, from time to time, go to university to the government to join their ranks. But the institutional linkages, where, for example, universities are commissioned or consulted, and projects given to them, and the research findings incorporated into data that government will work with, hasn't happened. Definitely it hasn't as much as is desired for the development of the country, and it has not happened at levels which will compare favorably at all with the relationships with developed countries.
Do you need government to commission universities before they do these things?
We are in the knowledge industry. The most we can do is to disseminate our findings. But the utilization of our resources requires other stakeholders who must appreciate the need for such findings.
Okay, so they must appreciate it, but while we wait for government to consult, while we wait for government to do this, what have the universities on their own done?
Dissemination of information we routinely do. Let's take the mandate of GIMPA. The name itself suggested management and public administration. So we've got management, we've got public administration. We do technology, we do law, we do liberal arts, and all of those other kinds of things. If our research findings are not utilized by government, if government doesn't see the need, and I'm not saying that's the case now, if government doesn't see the need to utilize the intellectual output of an institution like GIMPA, however prolific we are and however scholastic we are, the link that is required between scholarship and industry, practice, and government is absent. So it's a two-way stream. It's not only entirely up to the institution to send out its reports. It is for the end user to appreciate that such data and such findings are useful to us.
Since you talk about industry, what's the linkage between the universities and industry?
Universities are not ends in themselves. As I said, we are in the knowledge industry, so to speak. And so we churn out data, we prepare our students, and they go out into the world to work and to make a difference. So the link is in several folds. One, the development of the curricula must take into account the demands and the requirements of industry.
Unfortunately, industry has always faulted the universities of not doing so, and they say whenever students are churned out of the university into industries, they underperform.
And so it underscores the point that I'm making, that those linkages are necessary. You know, I don't necessarily and fully accept that point, but even conceding that there is merit in that point, and there is some merit in it, it still makes the point that I am also making. So there is a need for these collaborations, because industry is not out there separate from universities, and universities are also not out there separate from industries. Our curriculum has to factor what industry requires. Our students, before they even come out, have to see the kind of working world that they'll be operating in, and that is where the likes of internships do come in. Our instructors are not removed, and if you are a practitioner in a particular discipline and the instruction is so theoretical that it has no practical application, it's of no use. Our instructors also have to have those links. Data has to inform what industry is doing, and so the links between industry and academia is manifest and is obvious.
And is that something you're doing already?
It's something we are doing, but as a country, I think that the links between government and scholarship, the links between industry and scholarship can much be improved. And that's the case that I'm making. And that's the case that you also observed has been made.
So let's get to, the bit about government having to consult universities, to put in place infrastructure for the growing numbers as a result of, the implementation of a government policy that seeks to ensure that a lot of students go to secondary schools. You say government should consult universities this year, they must do so early. Why? Somebody would say, why the rush?
It's not a rush, it's forward planning. The motto of one of the very greatest schools in the country and in the world actually says, think and look ahead. And if you have in mind that students will be graduating, you don't wait for them to graduate to see and answer the question, what next? It's a necessary part of a training planning cycle to look at entry and exit, characteristics and opportunities. So we know that come 3-4 years, students will be coming out, at least 100,000 more students that are presently in the system because of the rollout of the free SHS. You don't wait till the eve of their graduation to start talking about everything to look at their further development. What courses are they going to read? What additional lecturers are required? What additional lecture facilities are required? What additional teaching and learning material are required? And the like. And so with the onset and implementation of the policy, you look at the next step. And 3 years ahead of time is not rushing it. I think it is timely planning and foresight.
That would present opportunities for the private sector also. So maybe government could just, allow the private sector to take those opportunities. Or even the public universities, that presents an opportunity for you. You don't necessarily would have to get government involved.
The private sector will do what they have to do, and the public universities will also presently do what they have to do. But whoever conceives of a particular policy should also look at the outcome. I should also say, thankfully, that I am aware that in some very recent discussions, government is inclined now to undertake those kinds of discussions. But it is probably improper to take a laissez-faire approach, which I'm not suggesting you are suggesting, which is to say, roll out this policy and assume the private sector will take it up, or assume that the public institutions have the capacity to absorb. No. Planning ahead. Have those discussions and let the private sector and let the public universities tell you that we are comfortable and we are prepared. That is good planning.
You want government to hold the discussions with the both public and private institutions?
I think those discussions must be had. And as I said, just within the last week, I'm aware that there's been some indication that the Ministry of Education is prepared.
But I believe on your own also you're planning.
Yes, we are planning. But let's not forget that every institution has limitations. All public institutions, this is also one of them, have limitations. And this institution has additional features. It's a public institution, but it's a fully fee-paying institution. And so there are certain financial challenges that certain students who would otherwise qualify from the second cycle institutions, they may be eligible to go to this place or other places, but because of financial considerations. So even along those lines, we would have to look to see those students who may be interested in public administration, those students who are interested in the various offerings we do have here, who may want to come here and who don't have the means of doing so. Is there any opportunity for them to come here, or do they go to other places? Those discussions are necessary to have.
Now, the final point you make, and one that I mean, sounds very interesting to me, is that you're calling for, basic education to be 6 years, and then JHS added to secondary school. And so, examinations are taking at primary 6 for people to go to secondary school. Professor Bonzi Simpson, why that call?
We've got 3 levels of education in this country. We've got the basic level or the primary level, we've got the secondary level, and we've got the tertiary level. The recent policy has made it even more urgent and even clearer still. Basic education under the present dispensation comprises 2 elements: the primary schooling and the junior high schooling.
Well, I'm sure you enjoyed. I will certainly bring you the rest of that another time on New Day. Certainly maybe tomorrow you get the rest of that.